This conversation aims to explore the history of internet through your personal and regional perspective, tracing how Latin American and Argentina in particular have helped the foundation of internet governance. Your journey offers an invaluable link between the early internet era and today's interconnected world. To start, we'd like to revisit Rose's first moment when everything was still new and uncertain. How did you first become involved with the internet?
Well, I am an engineer. I worked many years in mobile telephony. I was involved in the development of the four, now there are three, but at that time there were four mobile telephone companies in Argentina. And with partners we had in Brazil, we also helped develop mobile networks in Brazil, in Malaysia, in Spain, in other countries. So my involvement with technology is related with my profession. I'm an electric and electronic engineer, and I worked many years in telecommunications. Then in the late 1990 something or early 2000, the internet network started to develop not only in cities, but also in rural areas. So as I developed from mobile telephony into internet, I started to get involved in the development of rural networks in different parts of Argentina. That's from the technical side. Then in early 2000, 2001, 2002, I started to work as an advisor of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Argentina as a technical advisor. At that time, my role was to advise the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in relation with the exports of software services or online services from Argentina to other countries in Latin America and in the world. At that time, there was the starting of the process of the World Summit of Information Society. That was an initiative from United Nations. So the initiative started in 1998 and it was organized in two phases in 2003 and 2005. And as an advisor of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and as an expert in technology, I started to work with diplomats in preparing the documents from the delegation that the delegation of Argentina was going to show and to present in the two phases of the World Summit of Information Society in 2003 and 2005. So that was my start as in all related with internet governance and regulations of the internet as a global level. Before, my focus was more in the development of networks at the national level, more technically oriented. Then, for different reasons, I was part of the delegation of my country. In 2005, I went to Tunis, where the documents of the World Summit of Information Society were defined. That was for me a changing moment of my career, because after that, I got involved in all this internet governance process. Even perhaps that was not in my idea, because I was more technical oriented. But suddenly I discovered a world of very interesting developments related with regulations at the global level. This is how I got more involved with ICANN and Internet Society. In that meeting, I realized that there were several organizations that were involved in regulations and the development of the internet. That was 2005. That was 20 years ago. Time flies, huh? But I thought that could be interesting for me to get more involved in those organizations so I could learn more from the experts that created the internet, how this technology and how these regulations would evolve in time. So this is how I got involved. Then in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I ended up being kind of the person that was the one to go to these meetings. And then I explained to the government that it was important to participate in ICANN, in the Government Advisory Committee of ICANN, representing Argentina. So this was my role for several years. Then I also got involved in several technical activities and working groups in ICANN in different roles. I'm still involved in the country code group that reviews the rules for the country code top-level domains. And at the same time, I started to get involved with Internet Society. And we have a chapter in Argentina, and I was a member of the chapter. And then I was the president of the chapter of Internet Society in Argentina. And then I became part of the global board of Internet Society has a global board, and I was the first woman in Latin America to have that role. So it was a process during these 20 years that I got more involved. Then let's say like 20 years ago, when I started to go to these meetings, I noticed that the participation of Latin America was very low in number and low in relevance of participation. And I thought that it could be good to help the professionals that were going to these meetings to be more informed and to promote also the participation, because there were some fellowships and some ways to fund the participation of people from Latin America or developing economies, and the participants were not so aware of these opportunities. So this is how myself and my colleague Adrián Carballo and other colleague Oscar Mesano for us is kind of the creator of the internet in Latin America. He's a very well-known person and the first to create internet exchange points in Latin America. So the three of us thought that it could be good to create a space to train about all these developments from a global perspective, from a multidisciplinary perspective. And the training should be free, not payment. I don't know in your country, but in Latin America, usually it's difficult for people to pay for training, especially if it's not a formal training in a university, for example. So we decided it should be free. It should be multidisciplinary, so it should be interesting for lawyers, for engineers, for politicians, for government employees. So we started with a project called South Cool on Internet Governance, and the next year will be the 18th edition. And we started with 1 week on-site program with translation into English and Spanish, and with fellows from all Latin America and with experts from Latin America, United States, and Europe. But then with the change of technology and after the COVID pandemic, we became hybrid. In pandemic, we were totally hybrid for 2 years because there were restrictions in many countries also here to meet in person. So after that, we decided that we should be always hybrid, fully hybrid. The interesting thing is that in the pandemic, we usually had fellows from all Latin America. But during the pandemic, we started to receive fellows from Asia, from Europe, from Africa. It's part of the time difference, and but the translation into English helped. So not many, but from then on, we have fellows from, I would say, all over the world, which is very interesting. And then from 1 week, totally hybrid or virtual and then hybrid, the fellows started to ask for more information before the week because they thought that was too much information on that week. So now we have a pre-training, which is online. Then we have this week, which is hybrid. You can come in person or attend it online. And then we have partner university from Argentina. So for those fellows that do all the evaluations in these 2 stages, the online and the hybrid stage, they can do a research phase with tutors from the university, and they receive a diploma from the university. So every year we receive like 200 fellows on-site or virtual or together around 2,000, and then around 40 and with the diploma. So that is a very interesting project. I consider it like my 3rd child. I have two kids, which are young grown-ups like you. But this is kind of my 3rd child. And then 9 years ago, we started with a similar project, but only focused on Argentina. And the regional school has been organized every year in a different country. We have organized it 3 times in Brazil, 2 times in Colombia, 4 times in Argentina, 2 times in Mexico, 2 times in the United States, and one in Costa Rica, one in Panama, and next year it will be in Guatemala, in Central America. This is more or less all the story summarized.
You have mentioned you just realized the Latin American development is quite low. So, what was the environment in Argentina and Latin America at the time, and what was people's perception of this new technology?
Well, it has been evolving. At the time when we started with this process, with these meetings, they were in the world, they were connected like 1,000 million people. What sometimes is called billion, but it's not a billion, it's 1,000 million. And now in the world, as a general number, we have like more than half of the population of the world is included in internet, which is like more than 4,000 people connected. So evolution in Argentina was similar. There were connectivity in large cities. The thing with Argentina was like your country, it's a big country, and the geography is beautiful, but it's complicated to install infrastructure. There are many mountains, rivers. Similar is in Brazil, in Colombia. All the countries in Latin America have very beautiful geography, but at the same time, it's not easy to install infrastructure where the geography is complicated, and at the same time, not many people live there. These services are very expensive to give and to install, so it has been challenging. But Argentina started with the installation of internet exchange points. The first one was installed here in Buenos Aires, but then there are several in the whole country. With Brazil are the two countries that have more internet exchange points, and that has helped that the final price for the user is lower and the expansion of the infrastructure into more rural areas and smaller cities. At the beginning, 20 years ago, penetration was low, but it has been increased over the time. It has been a process, it is still a process. It is expensive to install infrastructure. The government has a very important role in, like 10 years ago, they started with a project called Red Federal de Fibra Óptica. It's a federal network of fiber optic that goes all around Argentina, and it's connected with local internet service providers. So the internet service providers contact this national fiber optic network, and that helps them to expand their services. But it has been a process. So it has been, I would say, a combination of the government offering a kind of a basic infrastructure and the smaller internet service providers connecting to that network. So it has been a public-private achievement, I would say, this growth. Today, the national average of penetration is like 70%, but that's average. So perhaps where I live in the center of Buenos Aires, which is the capital city of the country. I would say that would be more than 100%. So everyone is connected. It has to do also with the economic and availability of funds for families to buy the service. And then you have some provinces that are not so well connected. Perhaps the average is 70%, but then you have some provinces with less connectivity and some regions with higher connectivity. In general, the capital cities of the provinces are well connected, and for the good, the rural areas are starting to get more connected.
Okay, thank you. Your earlier involvement set the stage for many regional activities. Let's go back to Rose's formative years and the energy surrounding the internet expansion. So looking back, what were some of the most exciting and transformative experience in Rose's earlier days of internet development and government?
Well, that summit in Tunis, I think it was a starting point of the world to realize the importance of the internet and the importance of having rules, having regulations. We are experiencing it today with perhaps with the use of artificial intelligence and cryptocurrencies and all this. So the importance of having an internet that it's open, but at the same time, that regulations are important, that governments and companies and all stakeholders must understand that technology has to be used for the good of the people, for the good of the economy. And at the same time, we started to realize the challenges, the cybersecurity, cybercrime. So what also was clear that it was important combined work in between governments and private sector and academia and civil society, because that dialogue helped in building good regulations. So I think that was something we started to realize 20 years ago when the internet was not so much developed and technology was not so much developed. You know, at that time, there were few Internet of Things activities. It existed, the concept of artificial intelligence existed at that time, but now it's available for everyone at a very low cost or free. At that time, low Earth orbit satellites were few, there were few projects. Now they offer connectivity everywhere in spite of the fact that you don't have infrastructure. And so the technology has brought new challenges. But at that time, we realized that regulations were important and the governance of all this ecosystem was important. So I would say that that was a major point in the history of the internet. And also the evolution of the companies. I think that many private companies are giving importance to the user, to explaining, for example, the importance of taking care of their privacy, of their security, educating the user, because at the end, it's usually the user, the ones, whether at home or in a company or in the government, it's the target for the different attacks. So people must get to know how to protect themselves, how to protect the information, and to protect companies or where they're working, which is government or private. So this has been as I said, it's a process of learning. And we are still learning. We will always learn. There was always something new. It's so changed so quickly. Everything changed so quickly.
Yes, I agree with it. So, is there any particular milestone in Latin American that you feel especially significant or defining?
There was before the second phase of the World Summit of Information Society, there was a regional meeting in Brazil. There was, I think it was 2003 or 4, and it started a regional process, kind of a regional agenda for internet in general, and it's managed by the regional office of the United Nations called ICLAC or CEPAL. So that process was important for the region because it gathers the information. It doesn't exist that much in other regions, and it gathers all the important people that are involved. Also, this Internet Governance Forum at the global level started in 2006, and in Latin America, it started 2 years after. And it's an important meeting. And then there are some national activities as well. So those meetings are good for all the people involved with the development of the internet get together. I think communication and information among the different stakeholders is important. Among different countries is important. I find very important this recently convention approved in Hanoi in Vietnam about cybercrime, promoted by the United Nations with all the countries that are members of the United Nations. I think that's a very important achievement because we are all connected. So if one of the parts of the world is not really following the rules, then there are distortions and things happen. So the more agreement, the more interconnection, the more cooperation among all the countries of the world are the steps to achieve more security and a more safe internet. So I think this has been recently signed. It was approved by the General Assembly last year, and it was very recently approved in Hanoi. So it's called the Hanoi Convention. So I'm glad that we have this. And there are other instruments, but these global instruments, I think they are fundamental because we are all interconnected. A country can have all the rules, but then it's interconnected with others. So the others, if they don't have those rules, then the bad actors uses that lack of regulations to attack other countries.
Yes, thank you for sharing this. Of course, with innovation often come obstacle. Let's talk about the challenge that shape your path. So building something new, especially in emerging region, rarely come without difficulties. Did you ever face moment of uncertainty where you fear things might not work out as you planned?
Yes, of course. That's life. Life is uncertainty, and yes, especially when we had that idea of the School of Internet Governance. It has become a success over the years, but when you don't have a story to tell and you have to convince who could be your funder, for example, the government, or you have to convince private sector to give some funds for this training or organization that could be funding it, and you don't have a story to tell, then it's difficult. So the early idea came in 2007, and we could organize the first one in 2009. So we were 2 years, and it was frustrating. And there was a moment that I said, well, I cannot do this. I mean, it's not working. Nobody understands what I want to do. And then my colleague Adrián Carballo said, what is what you cannot do? And I explained it to him, and he said, I will help you. And then there were three organizations that helped us. One was from the Netherlands, the .nl, CCTLD. They gave us some funds. Telefonica, it's a private company which is it's from Spain, but it's also in Argentina, and Microsoft. So these were the first three contributions, and they were not that much. They were not big contributions, but with that, we could build the first one. Once you have a story to tell, when you have pictures and a recorded session, and you have what the fellows were saying in social networks, and then you have a story to tell, and then it was easier. Then we also faced some other challenges that they tried to capture it by other actors in the region, but it didn't happen finally. And so it has been very successful. We got several awards. We have 2 awards from the United Nations, from the International Telecommunications Union, and we have an award from China, a very big meeting, the World Internet Conference. They gave us last year also a very nice award. Unfortunately, I couldn't travel because I had other commitments, but they sent us a very nice video. I prepared a special video that they showed in the ceremony. So we are very happy with the achievement. And yes, it's challenging. There were moments of uncertainty, but you have to keep on trying. I mean, that's part of the life that we all have to face. If you have a difficulty, you have to try, keep on going. But it was a team effort. So we have a small team that do this, and they have been fundamental for us to achieve this project moving on.
So is your faith and your teamwork help you continue and find the resilience during those time?
Very resilient, and sometimes we have discussions among us. Not that we fight, but we have different opinions, and we are a very small team. We don't have a big budget, so most of the budget goes to the fellows because the fellows receive hotel, meals, and the training. So we don't want to use all the budget for having a big team. So we have a person that is in charge of videos and all the online activities. We have a designer, and we are 3 people, and we have also someone that helps us with all the evaluations, and the university helps us a lot. It's a university where I studied engineering, and they help us a lot with the tutors and with their online platform for the evaluation. So it's a team effort, which is nice.
Thank you. When the internet was still developing, the future was open to imagination. In those early days, did you imagine the internet would evolve into today's globally utility?
Somehow, yes, but not so quickly. I mean, what until 5 years ago, I could imagine that, but now this very quickly development of artificial intelligence, I think it's very interesting. I think it's very challenging for many aspects. I think it's challenging for the labor market. I think it's challenging for education. For example, I'm a university teacher. How can I do a test? All the information is available. And so learning by memory has no more sense because you have all the information available. So you have to be creative in trying to make your classes interesting. And at the same time, when you do a test to evaluate, you also have to be creative because these young people have all the information at hand. So you have to train them better to think and make evaluations of the information that they get, which is the good source, compare sources, than like before when I went to university, that was learning by heart things that you have to explain to your teacher. So that is challenging. It's very challenging for governments, especially for developing economy governments, because everything is going very fast. For example, this challenge of quantum computing with encryption. So many countries are already thinking about that. Not all the countries of the world are working on that. And that is a challenge that will be a reality in 5 or 6 years. It looks like far away in the future, but it's not that much. If you're planning a country, if you're planning the strategy of a country, 5, 6 years is nothing. So not many countries are taking really, they're realizing that with encryption in the near future. So that it's happening very quickly. That is challenging. So I hope that younger generations, I'm in the final of my career, but you, for example, you're so young, you have to start thinking about these changes to the future. So that is, and also cybercrime is challenging. So the bad actors are always ahead. Regulations go behind, regulations take time to develop, which is normal. And it's normal because they have to be good and not to restrict. Sometimes regulations, when they are done quickly without a good evaluation, they just are not good for the development of new technologies or services. So it's interesting times, challenging times, and we'll see. I'm always optimistic.
As the internet grew, so did you influence? Let's move to some of the accomplishments you achieved along the way. Your leadership has been remarkable, from co-founding the South School on Internet Governance to breaking barrier as the first Latin American woman on the ISOC Board of Trustees. When you reflect on your journal, and what are you proudest of?
I like that I have opened the mind and the thinking of many women that are in technology. It's not that easy, but it's not impossible. I think it has been a good achievement. Many women have come to me, and after a presentation or a conference, they have told me, yes, after you told me to be encouraged and do and go ahead, and I did it, and I finally got what I wanted with my career. I think it's good to work together, men, women, young people, old people, experienced people, with people that are young and have so much energy. I think the diversity is what we should achieve. Not only women, not only men, or only young people, or only experienced people. It's not easy. The easiest is what we have, and the difficult is to move from what you're comfort with. But it's not impossible. When I went to university and I studied electronic engineering, we were very few women. And why you like that? Well, I like the career, I like the physics, and I like the electronics, and I like the technology. That was not very common among women, but it's not impossible. So also what we tried with the National Center of Engineers at the time, and then after that, is explaining that for women there is a lot of opportunities if they studied STEM careers, not only engineering, but other careers related with technology, because there's a high demand in the market. And that is important when you select what you will study, that you think that you will have a demand and you will be able to sustain yourself with your work. For women, that's a very important thing, especially if you want your economic independence when you are grown up. So I have been trying to explain that message. It is not easy. It is a process. It's like the internet. We have to keep on repeating that all the time. But I'm glad that new generations are more engaged with STEM studies, and that it's an important thing. It is not that easy that young people get interested of people more experienced like me. So usually they tend to attend activities that are led by younger people, which I totally understand. So I'm very glad that my students like what I do, that young people get happy with the proposal that I do. I'm very happy for that. I think it's an honor for me to have the attention from younger generations. That it's very encouraging for me.
Thank you. Every great journal also bring lessons. Let's explore you have learned and what wisdom you like to share. Looking back across your career, there must have been many insights gained through both success and challenge. What lesson do you believe are most important for today's internet leader to understand from that period? Is there anything you would have approached differently if you could start again?
If I could start again, I would have been. That's the thing with the engineers, it's not only with me. Engineers, at the end of our mind, we're perfectionists and we don't speak up unless we are absolutely total secure that we are going to say the right thing. That sometimes is a mistake. Of course, it's good always to say the right thing at the right moment, but sometimes you lose the opportunity. And that's not only me, it happens with some of, I realize that this is a characteristic of people that we have studied these technological things. We are kind of perfectionists and we are not totally sure what we are going to say. We don't speak up. And then someone else that has nothing to do with it, they speak up and then you lose the opportunity to share your thoughts. So that is something that I have changed with time. So I have learned that over time. But if I would go back in time, that it won't happen. But if I could, yeah, I would be more courageous and go ahead and speak up and saying what I think. So that is something that I have learned. And I talk with many colleagues of mine who are also engineers, and I think that we all have the same feeling. And I think that's something that I would change. And then sometimes I'm not so persistent. Other colleagues in my team, they are. For example, my colleague Adrian Carvalho, he's very persistent. When I explained to him, like 20 years ago, this idea of the school, I was going to give up because he said, well, nobody believes in it, nobody understands. And he said, no, you have to keep on trying. So that is something that I have learned, but it's not naturally in me, but it depends on your personality, and something that I think that everyone has to have in mind. So most of the successes that we can get in life come from persisting, from insisting, of course, with respect, with good arguments, but keep on trying and keep on convincing people that you have an idea. So these two things I would change.
Thank you for sharing the persisting. So finally, let's look outwards at the broader picture of Latin American role in internet history and the legacy you hope to leave. So from your vantage point, what is the unique contribution of Latin American to the global internet story? And what do you hope future generations, especially young women entering ICT and governance, will remember about this period of internet history.
Latin America has brought many very good specialists and experts into the internet governance arena. We have grown. I think one of the achievements of the school has been to grow this group of people that are involved in this process. So one of the interesting things in Latin America is this development of internet exchange points, which is a model for other countries. It has been considered as relevant in Africa, for example. So the idea has been kind of exported, not with money, but with ideas to other regions and to other countries. So this interconnection. Also, the lessons learned from Latin America has to do with its unique distribution of economic and wealth and population. It's a very beautiful region, but it's very unequal. So it's the only region in the world that has so difference in between rich regions and poor regions, rich cities and poor cities. So, and the uneven distribution of infrastructure for telecommunications. So improving that is a good lesson for the whole world. The involvement of developing economies is very important. That it's very important that our voice is heard, that we are present in meetings where the future of the internet is defined, whether in person or virtual, because then the decisions are taken and we need that our reality must be taken in consideration. So they have to learn that they have to be present, that they have to get involved, which is something that my students ask me is, well, if I'm a lawyer, I don't understand technology. You don't have to be a technologist. You just have to understand some concepts. And of course, give the focus on legal issues. If you're an engineer, you understand technology and you focus on technology. If you're a politician, you understand the governance of the internet and in between technology and laws. So it depends on your career and your background. You can focus on whatever you like. And you don't have to be a specialist in other issues, but you have to understand concepts. You have to take the time to understand some technical concepts. For example, I'm an engineer. There was a moment in my career I had to learn regulations of telecommunications because I was developing telecommunications mobile networks and I had to understand the regulations. So there's a moment in your career you have to become more multidisciplinary. And that is a challenge. That is a challenge for all of us. And it's a challenge for university as well, because they are not becoming really multidisciplinary today. So that I think that process is interesting. And please be open your mind and try to understand what other colleagues in other disciplines think and try to contact them and exchange ideas and dialogue. That's very important.
Thank you for your insight because many youth will think we are not technology, so we didn't enter this industry.
No. You don't have to be, just learn some concepts.
Yes. And thank you again, Olga, for sharing those memories and insight. Your story is a vital part of internet living history, and hear it in your own words help us remember how it all began. And that's for today's interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Ciao.
Okay, ciao. Bye.
Bye bye.